Welcome to The Connector, where we connect North Carolina to ideas and North Carolinians to each other. This podcast series is from the Institute for Emerging Issues at North Carolina State University. And now to the conversation.
Hello and welcome to the Connector podcast. My name is Tarik Woods and I'm the Policy and Program Manager for the Institute for Emerging Issues. North Carolina continues to grow, expected to surpass both Georgia and Ohio by the year 2050 in population. And in order for us to continue to build, we've got to prepare our infrastructure. The 2025 Emerging Issues Forum covered energy policy. We'll continue to work on water and housing in the next years. But today I'm joined with Dana Magliola from the NC Chamber, Andrea DeSantis from North Carolina Department of Commerce, and Claire Williamson from the NC Justice Center. And we're going to talk about how the energy policy recommendations affect each one of their sectors. So I want to start off just asking a general question. Each one of you served on the Energy Infrastructure Advisory Council here over the last year, which published recommendations around energy infrastructure in North Carolina and how we prepare for the future. So I'd like to start by asking, out of the strategies that we identified, which do you feel has the greatest opportunity to create impact?
Yeah, I'll start, Tarik. Thanks for having me, and great to be with you today. I think North Carolina's energy story is a growth story, and we can't have one without the other. And the way you point out, we are the third fastest growing state in the country. We've got to get prepared. I think one of the strategies that IEI articulated in the forum this year is addressing the modernization of our energy grid and addressing technology opportunities to improve not only resiliency, but capacity, redundancy. I think that's one of the things that businesses really want to look for because they rely on reliable, affordable energy for their planning, for their operations, and I think that's one of the most effective strategies that IEI has put out there.
Absolutely.
I'll chime in and say that in order to do this great work to continue to build and prosper here in North Carolina, we know that we need a strong and talented workforce. I love that in the IEI process, that was a major focus, right? Really coming up with the complementary workforce strategies that are going to support business and community as we continue to look ahead. For me, there were two strategies that I thought were really key in this work. One was really thinking about the connections between industry, education, and workforce development systems. We need to find ways to enhance that collaboration that happens both at the state level and then down to the regional and local level so that we can ensure that students, families, educators of all ages understand what the pathways are in energy careers and then how they can get connected to that work throughout their educational and workforce pipeline, whether it be somebody that's in high school exploring through job shadowing or somebody that is thinking about the next step in their career and wants to shift so they can know what community colleges offer programs, what local supports are available through workforce development boards and other community resources. So for me, the focus here on connection and then awareness are really central to growing this energy workforce.
There's two things I want to focus on here, which is one of the recommendations I want to raise up. I think is this, promoting the construction of energy efficient houses. As we build a house, that's the best opportunity to make it energy efficient, to use less energy over the long term. And right now we have some pretty outdated building codes. And so not only is there work to increase those building codes, but also to encourage the developers and people making the construction to voluntarily go above and beyond that, I think is really essential because these are the cost, we build now, but we pay for these houses. We live in these houses 50, 100 years. We want to build the best things that we have. The other piece, as I was reflecting on some of these recommendations, was just that I think there's been some big developments that have happened since we developed these recommendations, like in the fall of 2024, winter of 2025. I think one of them was the rollback of many federal programs including tax credits to support the development of like local clean energy projects. Also, some energy efficiency programs and tax credits are being rolled back. And then also a lot of the community development grants were also rolled back. And that kind of investment is really key. And so I think it does prompt us to ask, like, if there is going to be less federal funding, these are still really important issues that the recommendations pointed to. And I think it's worth looking at where can the state step up, where can other private actors step up, so that we can have, we can grow appropriately and like actually make investments into higher tech, locally produced energy.
Thank you, Claire, and I appreciate that. There is just a ton of changing context. As you remember, the forum was slated to be in February, and between February and May, when we actually had the forum, a lot changed.
It did.
And you've all kind of referenced some of the recommendations that you feel IEI can help champion. And like you mentioned, state and other partners are going to have to do some additional work and change and be flexible. So are there any current initiatives or current organizations, projects that are kind of already doing some of the work that were referenced in the recommendations? And if so, can you share what they're doing or how your own sectors are kind of working around all the changing context in the energy infrastructure landscape?
Yeah, I'll jump in and I'll say, I think right off the bat, one of the great things that IEI does is convene different groups. Mm-hmm. And, we did a similar process with the business community, business and industry, in articulating what is the business vision for energy. You guys bring together all of these different voices, including the business community, because it really, and Andrea, I think you hinted at this, no sector can go about this alone. We can't solve this unilaterally without collaboration and coordination across business, communities, government, all of the different stakeholders. I think right off the bat, bringing folks together, and IEI early talking about engaging local leaders in making these decisions. And as you pointed out, not just between when we were supposed to have the forum, had a snowstorm, had the forum later, but now, between then and now, the federal landscape has shifted. Mm-hmm. And so having engaged local and state level leaders in this energy conversation has become all the more important. And when business leaders want leadership engaged early in those conversations, because the last thing industry wants is to get near the goal line and have the goals, the goal posts moved. Right. And I think that's something that we're already seeing successfully out of the forum.
I think that engagement of the business community is central to this whole conversation, but then in particular on the workforce front. Yeah. And so back in March of this year, Governor Stein established the Governor's Council on Workforce and Apprenticeships. That's housed within the NC Works Commission, which is our state workforce board. And this set of leaders are really focused on what can we do to holistically and meaningfully grow our workforce in some of the key sectors that we know our state really has a lot of talent in. We've seen a lot of investment from industry. What can we do to ensure that people are going to continue to prosper? In that work, and something that I think IEI can continue to be a part of and champion, is really identifying the ways that we can convene folks, bring them together, and then find ways for businesses to lead throughout this process. I think to your point about like the goalposts moving, in education and workforce, we have a tendency to pull in leaders from the business community, listen to them, they advise us, and then we go back and do our work. And what we need to do is really find ways for industry sectors, in particular energy, to come together, design curriculum and pathways. Yeah. Have some real input into what this needs to look like throughout the pipeline. And we know that businesses are always navigating this tension between their long-term workforce goals and their short-term needs, which could change. And so finding ways to really support that convening at a sector level, I think, is going to be key. And then championing some of the really excellent work-based learning programs that we have right now. And so just want to briefly highlight that the Siemens Foundation has invested in the North Carolina Business Committee for Education with the Everyone Charging Forward initiative, really designed to support that electrical workforce when it comes to electric vehicle chargers and other parts of that EV infrastructure. Knowing that students are going to come into this work at different times, but in order to make it meaningful, you need that hands-on experience.
Yeah.
And so finding ways for the business community to really say what it is about a work-based learning experience that would be meaningful, and then set somebody up to actually come in and do a job after they're finished their training. So I'm excited about the pieces we have going, but we're going to need to continue to convene and continue to find ways to bring our industry in early in these workforce conversations, not at the end when we've designed a program.
Well, workforce readiness is infrastructure
Yes,
readiness.
yes.
Because it's not always
Yeah.
tech. It's really about people. So I think that's a really important point.
Love that connection.
I'll start off by just saying one group to shout out is like Center for Energy Education out in Halifax. Does for years have been doing community-based like training and getting folks ready for renewable programs, solar ready, EVs training, and they do fantastic work, and would love to see more from them. One of the things that IEI did host back this spring was a peer learning network for faith-based communities around utility assistance programs. And I really appreciated that opportunity to like I got to participate in that as well. And one of the most powerful summaries I've ever gotten about is because a lot of our faith-based communities provide utility bill assistance as well. They are also doing social services. And one of them talked to me. He said, we have this crisis program. It's for, crisis assistance. He goes, but it's not crisis. This is chronic. I see the same people month after month. And it speaks to, I think, a real need that like people want to give and help when someone's on a hard time, but what do you do when that hard time is persistent? And that's the reality that's facing about a quarter of North Carolinians these days who are energy burdened, that are paying a substantial amount of their income just to like heat and cool their homes so that they can sleep at night, so they can have a place that's like healthy for their kids to live in. And so I think continuing to elevate and raise those needs is important, but also on the flip side is like, what are we doing about bill affordability in the long term? How can you help the communities in need, but also look at systemically where are energy costs rising? I mean, I don't know if you want to get into it, but there was a piece of legislation that was passed this year, Senate Bill 266, that the Justice Center's position is that it's taking us in the wrong direction. It's going to lead to energy costs rising over time as risks get shifted from kind of utility shareholders onto residential ratepayers. And we think there needs to be a look at like residential ratepayers shouldn't be having to pay for all the infrastructure moving forward. There needs to be a system of sharing.
Well, I appreciate it. And something that I think each one of you have referenced is, energy cannot operate in a silo. We have to find ways to bring conversations together in order to build this pathway forward for all these millions of new North Carolinians that want to call the Tar Heel State their home. So something I want to ask you, you're each from three very different sectors, government, business, communities, community advocates. Can you tell us something that's unique to your work and energy infrastructure? What is it about your sector in general that has this interest in energy infrastructure in the future?
I'll start and just say that I think a lot of I work to advocate for working families in low-income North Carolinians. That's the mission of the Justice Centers, to reduce the root causes of poverty. And in the energy space, a lot of low-income energy is actually housing issues. It's dealing with that people have where people are living is there may be considerable repair needs before they can get access to energy efficiency. And so they get stuck in a loop where they are paying almost the same amount as their rent or mortgage and their utility bill during these peak times, and they're not able to like save that money to reinvest to then like be able to get better efficient equipment. And so these housing, I'm so glad that you guys are focusing on housing and energy and water, because these are very interrelated issues for somebody in a house just trying to like get the amenities that they need to be healthy and productive in society.
Yeah, we definitely can't tackle one thing without
Yeah.
addressing all of them.
Absolutely.
Housing, energy, water. I mean, these are really connected. Then you throw transportation, broadband, all of those infrastructure verticals, they do integrate and they are important. I'll follow up and say, I think one of the things that we see energy in the business community is that it can be both a constraint, but also an accelerator. And when energy is available and there's smart energy policy, businesses can grow. Now, you could echo that in other infrastructures where there's more water treatment capacity, you'll see industry grow. But I think energy for business is absolutely kind of serves as both potential cost, but could be an accelerator. And I think we have to think about positioning energy and our planning for energy to not just capture the growth that we have today, but to plan for future growth, because we don't just want to stop growing at some point soon. We want to continue to maintain this best in the country environment for business, the best place to work, live, raise a family. I think that ecosystem approach is important.
And I think for me, when I think about workforce, you all hit it, like we're talking about people on one side and then connecting them with businesses. So for a person, right, to wake up in a house that is secure and they can afford their bills and they're in a job, right, that has meaningful career growth to be able to support themselves, that's key. And then up through all the projects that we're recruiting to the state in collaboration with so many at the Department of Commerce, making sure that those businesses that are going to offer those great paying jobs have the infrastructure, in particular the energy and water infrastructure, to actually set up shop here. And so I think that it's just kind of amazing the connection and the thread that you see across this work. And then additionally, the really wide range of jobs and career pathways. When we talk about energy, it's a big broad sector in terms of production and maintenance and actually like laying the groundwork, all of that. And so trying to figure out within this field, what are the most crucial occupations now and what do we anticipate them to be, I think is going to be really key to doing this work effectively.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. My last question for you is really, each one of you were big parts of the Energy Infrastructure Advisory Council. So my last question really is about your current work. What are you doing in your day-to-day, in your work, where you see the recommendations or see some part of the recommendations really come out? And what do you hope to continue to build on from the recommendations in the future?
Happy to kick us off. So one, I mentioned the Governor's Council on Workforce and Apprenticeships. I think that's going to be really key for setting up the state in terms of holistic and meaningful goals that then can be applied across so many industries. And really, as we do that learning about how to bring employers in, give them some real control and power in our decision making at the education and workforce level is going to be central. We also have some great work happening right now in our division along with our partners here at NC State around a federally funded grant called Smarter NC, which is really designed to support manufacturers with energy efficient solutions. So we know, just like Data mentioned, right, in order for these businesses to grow and expand, they're thinking about what does their technology need to look like. And so that interplay that we can have with them to support changes that they might need to see in how they produce or manufacture their goods is really exciting. And then finally, I'd love to put a plug in for my colleagues at the Department of Commerce in the Energy and Infrastructure Office who've been working on a 4-part series of white papers, really thinking about North Carolina's energy future.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that you bring up manufacturing. So much is changing in manufacturing with workforce challenges. We're seeing so many more manufacturers move towards automation. That, of course, shifts the demand on energy.
Yes.
Then you throw into the mixed data centers, a whole nother wrinkle. We've been really pleased to be engaged from the governor's office on the energy task force
Yes.
that he kicked off. And I know having the voice of business in that conversation is super important. I will say one of the other things that I think is happening is that, and you hinted at this a little bit, North Carolina has an opportunity to position sustainability as a competitive advantage. We are good at it in North Carolina because not only do we understand the business principles of sustainability, how the metrics are important, and how that you have to position the business case first and foremost to see sustainability activities adopted. I think that's one of those things that sets North Carolina apart, and energy can absolutely be an area where we can differentiate ourselves, not just, and there's sustainability across all of these infrastructure verticals, but energy has a unique space, whether it's workforce innovation, whether it's technology, whether it's policy, incentives. We have a lot of tools to use in that case.
Yeah. I mean, well, since you brought up data centers, and I think that's also one of the things that has shifted
Yes.
over, like that's really come into clarity in the last year, was this load growth, and mostly load growth from very large data centers. And so I think that some of the principles in the third section around community infrastructure and getting input and participation it applies just as much towards the production of energy as well as some of these big users. And I think that that's really important. It's something that we are starting to look to. And I think that there are some good conversations between what's happening at the Utilities Commission, where they just had, they brought everybody in for a technical conference, or I've been sitting in and listening to the governor's task force meetings as well, because we're committed that it's fantastic if we can bring in new business, but it also needs we need to make sure that like residential ratepayers, the people who are going to be here for a long time, are not subsidizing or paying for the infrastructure that's needed for a very particular kind of business. We need to make sure that there are protections for ratepayers, and I think that that's in the process of getting worked out at the moment, and that's very exciting.
Yeah.
The other piece I wanted to bring up and just raise up is a project that I have gotten to like support, but I'm in no means like the lead on, but it is it's like a North Carolina Community Lighthouse Initiative. And the reason I think it's relevant is it's also something that could have been an EPA grant or some of this federal funding that was coming in, and the work of Duke University, the North Carolina Council of Churches, and about 17 different faith-based communities in eastern North Carolina. They did listening sessions with those communities, found out, and it's really around heat, looking at how are these communities responding to extreme heat with their congregations, and realize that they do have a lot of resources and like personal relationships, and there's trust there. And so this project got some private funding to do it's called a community lighthouse, where it's solar battery storage, and it'll help these churches keep the lights on when there's a hurricane, when their power goes out, they can be a cooling center, they can run their kitchen when things are already closed. And that's the kind of project that is giving me hope right now, because I think it speaks to a really key way that like listening to the community, seeing what they really need, and it's not just affordable energy, but it's like energy in times of crisis, and then finding cool technology. I mean, it's amazing that you can generate your own power and store it on site and then share it back out to people. And that's what's going to be starting to happen in the next year and a half. And I'm excited for that kind of project, and I hope it can be a model moving forward as we look to really support our communities and like step into this future. I'm very hopeful that we can make progress.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. And this conversation just highlights again that nothing can really operate in a silo. If we want to build North Carolina, build this future, this affordable future in North Carolina in infrastructure across the board, we are going to have to fall into different sectors and have conversations across the table. Any final thoughts before we close out the podcast?
Yeah, I'll start. I think you hit on it right there. I don't think this is about a conviction towards solving our energy challenges. I think it's going to be, the challenges will be coordination, that we continue to engage community, government, and industry all pulling together.
Yes.
I think that's going to be the challenge. We've seen great momentum already. IEI is a big part of that, and we continue to see that momentum. And then we realize that energy itself is a core lever in economic development.
Absolutely.
Whether that's recruiting companies to come here or growing the business and industry we have here today, to produce those high-paying jobs, to support those communities. I think that this is the end goal, is we work together and we're convicted to solving those, we have that conviction to solve those energy challenges.
Absolutely.
I'm excited for the next 2 years of IEI forums to think about how energy and water and housing all come together, right? Because these are the pieces that we're going to need to work on in parallel. They're going to intersect each other to make sure that the solutions we develop really are resilient and sustainable, and can weather, whether it's new business coming in, when we think about AI and these data centers, whether it's changes in federal funding, all of that. We want to make sure that North Carolina continues to be well positioned. And so I love that these conversations are happening together, and we can think about what did we learn over this energy conversation that can be applied to the subsequent two.
I liked your pun there too about weathering the weather.
Oh, I did. That wasn't even
I know you didn't. I know you did.
Oh,
I know you did.
I wish I was that good.
Guilty.
Any last thoughts, Claire?
Kind of got me on the last one. I guess some of the, to your point about coordination, there are programs out there right now, whether it be workforce or efficiency. I think there is some need to bring together all the good stuff that's happening and help make it clearer to the people of North Carolina. I think that was one of the big results of when we did those Post-it notes. It was wait a second, there's all this awesome stuff, but most people don't know about it.
Yeah.
True.
So I think there is a lot of work to be done there, just elevating and connecting what's already available to people so that they can access it. And then there is something to be said about as weather gets more extreme, as costs keep rising, to really have a tough look at what's it going to take to have affordable, reliable energy in North Carolina, and give residential ratepayers a break as well.
Well, thank you to all of our panelists. You all have been great, and I love having these conversations, and they're so important. As we've referenced, IEI is going to continue this infrastructure series. We just covered energy. Next up is water, and in 2027, stick around for housing. I know that's going to be full of fun conversations. We just opened registration for our 2026 Future Forward Water Infrastructure Forum, which will be February 25th. 2026. We'll be having this forum in 3 different locations, so you can stop and see it in Asheville, Winston-Salem, or Morehead City out on the East Coast. So make sure you get your tickets. Please reach out to us if you have any questions, and check out emergingissues.org for additional information. And as always, until next time, let's stay connected.
This has been a presentation from the Institute for Emerging Issues at North Carolina State University. To learn more, please visit us at emergingissues.org.